Hello, welcome back to my fave fanfics. Here, I post, well, my favorite fanfictions, if that wasn't obvious. I do hope you'll enjoy them as much as I do. Please like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome, my dear faves, to the first part of What If Diluc and Kaeya Ended Up in the World of the Avengers. Credit goes to boyiqing for this fantastic fanfic. Link is in the description for those who prefer to read or want to contact the author. Chapter 1. In which Peter meets his new neighbors. The new neighbors are moving in today. Peter Parker can't help but glance into the open door right across his and Aunt May's apartment curiously. There's still barely anything in the revealed other than boxes on boxes. "Hey, pal, a bit of space please?" A grunt behind Peter makes him hurriedly press his back against the wall, or at least to the extent of his smushed backpack, as two men in mover outfits pass by him with a large vintage-looking sofa. "Sorry," Peter says as he presses himself closer to the wall, inching towards his door. "Don't worry, you're giving more than enough space." An unknown voice replies to him, and it's not the gruff ones on the movers, but a much huskier and smoother one. Peter jumps at the unexpected voice, within human limits, thankfully. Whoever just sneaked up to him went unheard by his spider hearing, their footsteps drowned by all the clamor in the hallway. He turns around to find a tall man looking at him with a charming and mysterious smile. The man is dark-skinned, long blue hair tied into a stylish braid, a literal pirate-style eye patch covering his right eye, a simple shirt with a questionable number of unbuttoned buttons that reveals quite a span of smooth skin, and an eye-catching single earring with a blue crystal so large that it feels like it should hurt the earlobe. "Wow," was the first thing Peter thinks. "What is a guy like him doing here?" Hi? That is some good hair dye," was the second thing that popped into Peter's mind. The hair is certainly impressive, the blue color striking and not in some uncultured gangster way. "I'm Kaeya, the one who's causing all of this trouble." The blue guy named Kaeya introduces himself. "Sorry about that. I wasn't expecting the company to come in this late." "Oh, no, it's fine." Peter waves his hands right before he whips them back to avoid the incoming cabinet. "I live right opposite to you, actually." Kaeya's smile widens by a fraction, blue eyes curving into a pleasant crescent. Peter suspects that Kaeya must also be wearing contact lenses, because he's never seen anyone with a natural eye color like that, and it's as cool as hell. "Oh? What a lovely coincidence, then." "Why yeah, real lovely." Peter suddenly remembers with dismay that he hasn't even introduced himself yet. "Oh, yeah, I'm Peter Parker. You can just call me Peter though." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Kaeya." Kaeya raises a hand to his chest in mock hurt. "Oh please, don't call me Mr. Kaeya if I don't get to call you Mr. Peter." "Just Kaeya is fine too." "Sure, Kaeya," Peter grins. "What a cool name too." Kaeya is nothing like the last 5 Bobs or Toms in the apartment building. Everything about this man already is nothing like anyone he's seen before, maybe not the Avengers, though, and Peter already likes him. His door swings open, and Aunt May enters the hallway to look at Peter. "Peter? Oh, so you are here. I thought I was hearing things, since you didn't come in for so long." Peter scratches the back of his head sheepishly. "Sorry, Aunt May, I was talking to Kaeya." "Kaeya?" Aunt May notices the noticeable blue hair behind him, and her expression changes slightly. Kaeya greets her cordially, hello. Aunt May, if I heard correctly? I'm moving into that apartment. Oh, Aunt May looks momentarily thrown off by Kaeya's looks, which Peter can relate to. Her smile quickly recovers and brightens, well, hello. I'm May, Peter's aunt, but May really is fine. If you need any help, feel free to knock our door anytime. Thanks, May. Kaeya moves to shake her hand, the blue jeweled earring on his left ear dangling dangerously close to Peter's face as the man slips by him. My brother will come by a few days to help, but I appreciate the offer. Brother? Peter voices curiously. Ah, yes, we're living together, Kaeya smirks. We've been staying at a hotel, since we just came to New York, and he's busy with work right now, so you probably won't see him for a while. Mr. Alberic? A mover calls out from inside Kaeya's apartment, where do you want us to put this sofa? Kaeya turns to Peter and Aunt May, that's me. I'm afraid I'll have to go. It was my pleasure to talk to you too. He turns to Peter, blue eyes twinkling with mystery. I'll see you next time, Peter. Oh, yeah, that's cool man. Peter adjusts his school bag. I'll see you next time, then. Kaeya nods and turns to enter his unfinished apartment, the long blue braid whipping around as elegantly as his entire presence. That place is fine, fellows, was the last thing Peter hears from Kaeya before he's dragged back into home by Aunt May. Aunt May closes the door, and immediately the air has quieted. What an interesting young man, she says, handsome too. I've never seen such a visually striking person like that. Aunt May? Peter asks, mortified, because he doesn't want to think about Aunt May whenever he sees Kaeya. Aunt May catches his look and laughs. Oh, Peter, don't worry, it's not like that. I'm just saying the truth, that's all. Peter can't really argue with that. His hair looks dope too. I've never seen anyone with blue hair like that. Aunt May agrees, it's like straight out of a cartoon. Aunt May then changes the topic to force Peter to change his clothes because he looks filthy. It's not his fault that he ran into a mugger. Peter? Ned whispers into Peter's ear not so quietly as they walk on the street back to Peter's home. What? There's an anime pirate cosplayer in front of your apartment. That caught Peter's attention, and he looks up from his phone to see Kaeya in his cerulean blue hair standing by the entrance idly. Even though it's almost winter, the man is wearing shirt that has such a large V-line that it almost feels scandalous. Oh, no, he's my new neighbor, Peter says. Ned gapes at him. Dude, what? Kaeya must have heard them, because he turns to Peter with that smile of his. Peter, he says, coming back from school? Peter nudges Ned in a "see I was right" motion while responding to Kaeya, yeah. Have you completely moved in? Quote. Not yet. We've got quite a bit of things to handle apart from the apartment, so I'll still be staying at the hotel for a few days. Kaeya says, his gaze, or his single eye gaze, to be exact, moving to Ned. Are you Peter's friend? Quote. Oh, yeah. Ned looks both surprised and intimidated by Kaeya's sudden greeting. I'm Ned, Peter's best friend. I love your hair. Well, nice to meet you, Ned. Kaeya chuckles in that husky voice of his. I appreciate the compliment. I'm very proud of my hair too. Did it myself too, actually. You dyed your own hair blue? Peter asks, impressed. Kaeya shrugs. I have a unique taste, I suppose. He looks down at his phone, then back at them with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, I must leave now. I have some urgent business to do. They give each other a hasty farewell, and Kaeya swoops away elegantly. "Dude, what is he doing in this place?" Ned asks. "He looks like he should be in an anime game or something with his blueness and eye patch." Peter can't help but agree. Peter runs into Kaeya a few more times before they finally switch numbers. Just like the easygoing air he has whenever Peter meets him in person, Kaeya replies to Peter's text with just the right amount of EQ that Peter wishes he could have too. He tries looking for Kaeya's Instagram account, not for stalking, he's just curious, but without success. "You should get an Instagram account, man. You'll be a celebrity in no time." Peter once mentioned that to Kaeya. Kaeya grins at him. Is that a compliment? Quote, "It took a while for Peter to realize, but despite the casual and easygoing appearance of Kaeya Alberic, the man is very private and secretive about himself, anything beyond the surface level." Peter is curious to learn more from this enigmatic man, but he doesn't push too hard, yet. Kaeya literally lives right across him, after all. Peter doesn't see Kaeya's brother until a week later. It was late night, when he was kept behind by a science project at school and a few mugging cases on the way home. It wasn't that late for Peter to have to sneak through his bedroom window, but still enough for him to be expecting the look from Aunt May when he goes home. He turns around the corner to the hallway leading to home, and stops at the sight of an unknown figure. Hello? The hallway was dimly lit, but it did nothing to cover the flaming red that hits Peter's vision. There's a tall man in a business suit standing right in front of Peter's apartment door, his hair tied back into a low ponytail, and the color as red as Peter's Spider-Man suit. There's a deadpan expression, and it's so out of place yet natural on the man's pale face at the same time. The man hears Peter and turns around, and Peter's spider senses tingles, just barely, at the cold presence. "Hello," the man says, and his voice is just as surprising as the rest of his face, low and sophisticated like a freaking nobleman. "Am I blocking your way?" Quote. Peter shuffles a bit under the man's neutral stare. The man has a stare that's almost as terrifying as Mr. Stark in R&D when he's high on caffeine and low on sleep. Man, are those red eyes? Peter can't help but notice, and the red is not helping with the sudden pressure that he's feeling. "Oh, a bit? My door's right on your left." "Oh, my apologies." The man moves closer to the right side of the hallway, right where Kaeya's apartment door is at. "I didn't know you were our new neighbor." There was an information bomb in the sentence that Peter manages to catch. "Neighbor, wait, are you Kaeya's brother?" The man tilts his head, his face seeming to be fixed in a neutral expression. Nothing like the smile that Kaeya always has when they run into each other. In fact, nothing that Kaeya's brother is showing is anything like Kaeya, except for their apparent interest in eye-catching hair color and cool contact lenses. "You've already met Kaeya?" The man asks. "Then you must be the Peter Parker that he mentioned to me, right?" Peter nods. He's feeling unusually nervous around this man. Even with the cosplay red hair, the man gives off so much nobility and elite vibes that Peter can't help but wonder again, just as he did with Kaeya, what is a guy like him doing here? "Pleasure to meet you. I'm Diluc." The red-haired man stretches out a hand gloved in leather, who even wears them at summer. Exclamation mark. And Peter hurriedly moves to shake it. "So, Mr. Diluc," Peter must have held too long, because Diluc takes his hand away before Peter does. And now he's feeling even more nervous. "What are you doing outside your door?" Diluc's face doesn't change, but Peter can feel the annoyance from the man, and it's thankfully not directed at him. "I don't have the keys, and Kaeya," he says the name distastefully, "was supposed to be here organizing our boxes, but he must have gotten occupied." Again. Peter wanted to ask what Kaeya was occupied with, but decides not to after spotting the minuscule downturn of the man's lips. "Oh, that sucks, man," Peter says. "Yeah, this building doesn't give spare keys. There's a place nearby that can make you a duplicate one, though." Diluc looks at him. "A locksmith?" Yeah, I can write you the address if you want," Peter offers. Before Diluc could reply, the default Stark phone ringtone interrupts him. I'm sorry, it must be Kaeya finally coming to his senses," Diluc says quite dryly as he takes out his phone from his suit pocket. He accepts the call, and any friendliness that Peter sensed from him disappears in an instant. It's unnerving enough for his spidey sense to tingle once. Kaeya. The name comes out with so much flatness that Peter almost cringes for the man on the other end of the phone. Peter can distantly hear sounds coming from Diluc's phone, but he didn't use his spider hearing to listen in. It is rude to invade the privacy of someone that you only met for 5 minutes, after all. The conversation ends quickly, with Diluc's irritated yet resigned sparse words in that sophisticated tone of his. Peter can tell that Diluc has had similar conversations many times before. HMPH was the last thing Diluc says, or grunts, before he hangs up on Kaeya. He turns back to Peter, the irritation on him disappearing as soon as he meets Peter's gaze. "I'm sorry for that. I would appreciate to know the address. Do you have Kaeya's number?" "Oh, yeah, I do." Peter fumbles to take out his phone. "Do you want me to send it to him?" Quote, "I would be very thankful." Diluc talks more formally and seriously than Kaeya too, and it's almost reminding Peter of Steve Rogers, just a more elite no smile, red-haired Steve Rogers. "Okay then, Mr. Diluc. I'll text Kaeya as soon as I get back into my room." Peter looks at his closed door a bit anxiously, after Aunt May finishes chewing me out too. An indescribable look flashes across Mr. Diluc's face, then his mouth finally lifts into a tiny smile, so small that it couldn't be really described as a smile, but more just a positive expression. "Don't worry, Peter, I can wait. Kaeya doesn't have anywhere else to go to anyways." After Peter manages to escape to his bedroom, he takes out his phone to text Kaeya the address of the locksmith. Peter Parker. 105 XXX Building, XXX Street. Peter Parker. "I just met Mr. Diluc, and he asked me to send the address of a nearby locksmith that I know to you. Kaeya. Thanks, looks like I don't have to worry about staying out late anymore, heart." Peter Parker. "Your brother also has really cool hair too." Peter Parker. "Did you also dye it?" Kaeya. "Yes, you could probably tell already that he's not the most enthusiastic person in the room." Kaeya. "But he lost a bet, and I insisted." Kaeya. "He needs something bright to light him up, don't you think?" Peter can't help but snort. Peter Parker. "It does fit him. You make really good hair dye." Peter Parker. "Wow. GIF. Kaeya. Smile." Chapter 2. In which Peter makes up a 5-season sob revenge story. Are you sure that we shouldn't dye our hair? As far as I can tell, no one on this planet has naturally red or blue hair. We'll stand out too much. Oh, come on, Master Diluc, we can just say that I dyed our hairs. We've seen a few people here in pink and green, remember? Besides, have faith in yourself, you stand out regardless. Quote ellipsis quote. You can just say that I made you dye it. I'm fine with being the bratty young brother, and you can be the loving and tolerant older brother. There won't be a speck of dirt on your image. What do you say? Quote. TCH. Peter silently sneaks another vial into the drawers amidst the teacher's droning. Even though Mr. Stark has assured that the Avengers Tower has stocked so much web fluid that the cleaning lady once reported a spider disaster, he still occasionally makes them himself to stash away at different locations. Using the loud chattering in the lab, Peter is successfully collaborating with Ned in stealing a bottle of methanol. The girls in front of him are talking quite loudly about some new bar that is opening in Manhattan, and it's clear that the teacher can hear them based on his frown. Ned slides over, and as Peter catches the vial being passed to him under the desk, thought he was delivering the methanol to him, but his best friend instead says, "Dude, everyone can hear them." Like, look at the teacher. Peter looks up to see the teacher's increasingly glowering figure and shoves the vial hastily into the drawers. He gives Ned a small gesture, one that meant pause operation, wait for further notice. Angry teachers do tend to be much more observant, after all. "Hey, guys." MJ sidles over, and Peter's heart jumps a beat at being addressed to by his crush. Without thinking, he hastily takes off his lab goggles, realizes that it was a stupid move, and now has to pretend there's something dirty on them to not seem awkward. "Hi, MJ." Ned thankfully answers for him, "What's up?" Quote. "I've heard that Peter has a new hot cosplay neighbor." Peter almost falls out of his seat. Suddenly, Kaeya doesn't seem as cool as before. "Where did you hear that?" Exclamation mark. Quote. "Shush." Ned hushes him, "Dude, teacher's about to blow." Quote. MJ looks at them with a pleased smile, her chin propped on her palm. It doesn't help with Peter's heart. "I have my ways," she simply says, and damn if that wasn't creepy but hot at the same time. Peter wants to ask what ways, because what if she accidentally finds out about his own little secret? "Ha, you should have seen that look on your face," MJ scoffs without malice. "I just walked by your building a few days ago and ran into him by the road." "But how did you know?" "Well, he looked," MJ pauses in a search for words, "aesthetically unique, so I approached him." "You mean hot?" Ned translates not so helpfully. MJ simply TSKS in response. "You can just do that?" Peter, the awkward introvert, can't help but ask. MJ rolls her eyes at him. "It's very hot. Anyways, I mentioned I'm from Midtown High, and he mentioned your name." "That's how I knew," MJ says. "He seems a very chill guy." "Cool hair." "Oh yeah, his hair looks awesome." Peter can't help but nod. Recalling the long-tied blue hair, almost makes me want to do it too. Ned and MJ share a glance, and they both burst into merciless laughter. "Ha." Quote. Peter rolls his eyes. I know, that's why I said almost, geez. He has enough common sense to know that the bright colors that Kaeya and Mr. Diluc will not fit on him. Absolutely not. He will look like an early 2000s emo goth brat, but colorful. Even so, his cheeks still heat up at his own truthful words, and chooses to ignore them by turning back to the lab project and listening to anything else but the two people snickering besides him. The girls in front him are talking louder than he last heard them, and he catches a part of their conversation. "Oh my god, we should totally go there. Literally everyone is talking about how hot the owner looks." Quote. My fake id's not here yet, can we wait for another week?" Quote. "PFTT, don't worry, I've been in like 100 bars, and none of them asked to see my ID. I'm sure this one will be the same." Quote. "That's because you dress up like a slut." Ah. Bitch, I know you wish you were like that too. Quote. Shut up, you too. It's true that most bars around here don't bother to check your ID if you look old enough, so I think you'll be fine. Sure. Peter decides stop listening for the sake of his law-abiding heart. He hasn't never stepped into any bars before. The Spiderman fights don't count, and he personally finds it hard to understand why anyone would risk getting caught with a fake ID just for some alcohol. The teacher, who apparently heard the whole thing as well, chose to explode at this appropriate moment. Girls, a word outside the classroom, now. Quote. Peter takes this chance to give Ned a gesture out of MJ's view. Operation continued. I need potassium carbonate, quick. Quote. Peter one day runs into Kaeya being threatened by a group of very suspicious-looking people in an alleyway. Naturally, his Spider-Man instincts kicks in, and he hurriedly rushes into the nearest quiet alley to change into his suit. Now, there's no need to be so angry, I'm just telling the truth, he hears Kaeya say. The man sounds unruffled, his voice as smooth as Peter has always heard. What the hell, man? Peter shouts internally. That's not what you say to a gun in your face. The Stark-produced suit tightens to fit his body within seconds, and Spider-Man leaps to the other alley. He lands on the top of a building that forms one side of the alley, peering down to observe the current situation. Kaeya is against the wall, his hands raised. Peter can't really see the man's expression from his angle and all the blue hair, but surely it can't be good. There's 3 men standing against Kaeya. The closed one to Kaeya has the gun raised, and the other 2 are reaching to the back of their waistband. Shut up, sissy, the man with the gun says, I'm warning ya. This is the Hound's place, not your fucking dress-up castle. The gun in his hand nudges against Kaeya's covered eye rudely. Kaeya's body seems to tense for a second, and it felt like the man was about to do something very stupid. Peter decides to intervene and announces his own presence with a flip into behind the 3 men. That's not really nice to say, guys. The 3 men whips around, their menacing expressions now panicked as they see the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. What the? Quote. Kaeya looked just as surprised, his single eye widening at the sight of a brightly red and blue superhero. Oh, shit. One of 2 men closest to him says empathetically. Before he could do anything, though, Peter's webs have already slammed him to the opposite wall, his limbs falling limp as the impact knocks him out. Peter took out the second person just as easily. He sidesteps the knife being slashed at him and webs the man to the ground at the next moment. Easy. He looks towards the last guy, the guy who was threatening Kaeya. The man no longer looks so confident anymore, his arms shaking, but there was a vicious glint in his eyes that made him just a tiny bit more threatening than the other 2. Why you fucker? The man points his gun towards Peter, 2 bullets already coming his way. Peter dodges them and closes their distance before the man could react. Pow! Not so cocky anymore, are you? Peter asks the unconscious body that he just punched the lights out of. A soft chuckle answers him, I'm not quite sure he can answer you. Actually, any of those 3, Kaeya looks at him, curiosity and gratefulness on his face. Thank you so much for saving me. You're welcome, man, Peter replies automatically, then remembers Kaeya's incorrect method of dealing with mob gangs. He crosses his arms in an exaggerated act of disapproval. You shouldn't have talked to the guy like that. Too chill. What if he shot you? Quote. A graphic imagery of a dead Kaeya, lying against the alley wall with blood seeping from his forehead, pops up most inappropriately, and Peter barely resists his shudder. Kaeya's mouth quirks. "I'm sorry. I'm new to this country, and I'm still adjusting to the new life here. If it was at my old home, I would have been able to handle that." Oh, Peter knew that Kaeya was new to New York, but not that he was new to America. "Well, I see. But this is New York, so you gotta up your game." Quote. "I'll remember that, kid." Kaeya nods his head seriously. "I've heard that there's a lot of heroes here, and I have gotten cocky." Peter may have puffed out his chest at that, until his mind acknowledges the kid part. Shit, his heart jumps once. He hadn't used his manly Spider-Man voice. "I'm not a kid," he says, trying not to sound defensive or nervous, but Kaeya's stare can be pretty unnerving at times, like now. "I just sound young." Kaeya raises a single eyebrow, his hand raising as well. "All right, I'm sorry." He does not look the least bit sorry. Peter's shoulders sag by a fraction. Did he really already slip in front of his new neighbor within the first month? Peter decides to take his leave before he exposes anything else by accident. "Anyways, nice chatting with you. But I gotta check out the other places. In case there's more people being threatened, you know." Kaeya blinks, and that familiar easygoing smile immediately appears back on his face. "I won't keep you then. May the winds guide you, young man." Peter smiles underneath his mask at the young man, and at the interesting blessing that Kaeya just said. He's never heard anything like it, but he likes it immediately. It suits Spider-Man very well. Bye. Peter swings back into the air, Kaeya's gaze on his back sending his way. Kaeya retracts his gaze from the costumed man. "Interesting," he says to himself, "very interesting indeed, if he had come another day." He crouches down to the unconscious man that just held him at gunpoint, rummaging through his pockets until he takes out a piece of paper. Kaeya reads it and his mouth curves up in satisfaction. Well, at least everything still worked out. Kaeya pockets the paper and reaches into his pocket for his phone to call Diluc. It answers on the first ring. "I got the list, Diluc." Kaeya tilts his head to listen to whatever his brother was saying, a lazy smile on his lips. It has much less of the friendliness that Peter and his friends were familiar with. The mob gangs around here and the treasure hoarders back in Teyvat, however, sees it much more often. "Ah, yes, I also forgot to mention." Kaeya looked at the webbing that held an unconscious man high on the wall. "There's one of those heroes in our area. I believe it's the Spider-Man that we saw on the news a few days ago. Yes, the red and blue one that doesn't have the shield and swings on buildings." He pauses to hear Diluc's response, and his smile widened. He did come to save me from a few Hound members. Not that I was asking for it, but don't worry, they know that Spider-Man was the one who did it." "No, of course I wasn't planning on doing anything other than talking. Anyways, I would advise you to watch out for any flying teenagers in red and blue at night. Perhaps you really should get a hood to cover your hair, it is very noticeable at night. A small price to pay for natural hair, don't you think?" Quote. Why did I say teenager? He sounded quite young. Very young. He sounded quite familiar, actually. Kaeya laughs. "What? I'm not hinting anything, Master Diluc, don't slander me. Everyone here sounds alike, and I just have my own thoughts, that's all." Diluc mutters something, and Kaeya smirks. Now, don't fret. I'll tell you everything later, including my observations. Are you still at Angel's Share? I'll come and find you. If you can prepare some death after noon, that would be even better. The phone hung up before Kaeya finished his sentence. Kaeya huffed and put the phone back into his pocket before leaving the small alley. He didn't bother to call the police. Peter knocks Kaeya and Diluc's apartment door. He was expecting Kaeya, since he's been seeing Kaeya much more often than the busy Mr. Diluc, but it seems that this time his luck has run out. Flaming red and an impassive face opens the door, and Peter has to stop himself from taking a step back. Not because that he's scared, mind you, but to save his vision from the redness that he's seeing. Hello? Diluc looks at him. Peter, right? Quote. Yeah, Peter lifts the tray of cookies that he was holding. Aunt May made extras, and she asked me to give these to you and Kaeya. Diluc's face barely changes. Is his face just stuck in that look? But Peter can feel a shift in his presence. Oh, thank you, Diluc says, and he sounds sincere about it. He pauses for a moment, then asks, do you want to come in for a while? Quote. Peter wasn't expecting that. He has been admittedly curious about the home of his new cool neighbors, but Kaeya hadn't invited him yet, so he had been planning to politely ask Kaeya by this weekend. But now, Mr. Diluc is inviting him. Can I? Peter asks out of politeness. Diluc nods his head slightly, looking at him with neutral red eyes. Do the brothers just wear those contact lenses 24/7? Even though Peter hasn't seen Diluc many times, it's already hard for him to believe that such a stoic-looking man would just always wear such an interesting color. Now is not the time to dwell on such matters, though. Peter rips his gaze off from Diluc's red hair and gladly passes through the awaiting door. The brothers' apartment room has a very traditional European vibe. Rich mahogany and creamy white dominate the walls and floor, quaint and colorful vases and paintings upspeckled throughout the room. It looks like the home of some vintage high-class European. Wow! Peter breathes out in amazement, your home looks awesome. Quote. Thank you, Diluc says behind him, it's based off our old home. Peter looks back, unable to contain his curiosity. Are you guys like, rich or something? Quote. Diluc gives a small huff, you could say that. We were, at the least. Now we are, adequate. That cryptic answer and Diluc's nobly vibe suddenly clicks. Instantly, a 5-season story of honorable heir of noble family and his rebellious brother gets kicked out of family and swears to find their own path, forms in Peter's brain. Oh, Peter says rather dumbly, that's cool. Diluc points towards a large table that looks just as vintage as the rest of the furniture. You can put your tray over there. Just mind the papers. As Peter puts down the tray of cookies, his eyes can't help but dart towards the papers that are scattered by the side of the table. He catches a few phrases about some opening business, some numbers in a lot of charts, shares of some angel, and a name of Diluc Ragenvinder. Ragenvinder? Peter repeats to himself. He remembers that the movers called Kaeya, Mr. Alberic, on the first day that they met, so why do they have different last names? Are they not actual brothers? Peter knows he shouldn't be this curious, but damn it, Kaeya and Mr. Diluc are both too cool and give off such mysterious vibes that he just wants to know more about them, just like when he first met the Avengers without their costumes. Here, Diluc's curt voice takes him out of his story development for the two men. Peter turns back to join Diluc at the apartment's resting area. Diluc sits down on the armchair, and Peter sits at the sofa. There's a TV facing the sofa, and for a moment, Peter feels like a fireplace would fit the overall vibe of this home more. Would you like to drink something? Diluc asks. They enter a short period of small talk, the regular, "How's your school?" and "I love the design," going back and forth. Peter is surprised at how little awkwardness there is in the room, considering that they've only met like 3 times and how serious Diluc seems. The man seems to be very familiar with this sort of activity, picking up each topic easily with few words, talking with a grace that is very different to Kaeya's easygoing tone but just as pleasant to listen to. After an acceptable amount of time and talking, Peter gathers the courage to ask the question he had been holding for ages, "Mr. Diluc, I have a question?" Quote. "Yes?" Quote. Peter shuffles in the sofa. "I don't mean to be rude or anything, but how come you and Kaeya look so different if you're brothers?" Quote. Diluc looks at him, and Peter almost shirks from the indecipherable stare. However, that look disappears immediately, as Diluc answers him patiently. "That is an understandable question," he says, "and there's a visible quirk of lips. Kaeya was adopted into my family when he was a child." Oh. The starkly different appearances now make complete sense. That makes so much more sense. Diluc nods slightly, and his phone pings. "I'm sorry, but it seems that I've got work to do," Diluc says, his face turning impassive once more. Peter waves his hands and stands up after Diluc does. "Oh, no problem, I should be going back too." He's satisfied with what he saw tonight. He even had a nice conversation with Diluc. "And again, thank you for the cookies," Diluc says. "When would you like me to return them tomorrow?" Quote. Peter's patrolling tomorrow is planned at 11 p.m. Any time before 10:30 is fine for me. I gotta catch up with schoolwork and stuff." Diluc nods, his red ponytail bobbing graciously, "Sure." Kaeya was the one to bring back the empty tray the next day at 10:30 p.m. sharp. Diluc got busy again, the man says apologetically. "Oh, that's fine," Peter says, still thinking about the stray circuit in his suit that he was fixing. "Where did he go to?" Quote. Kaeya shrugs, his smile enigmatic, "I'm not sure. More work, probably." Chapter 3. In which Peter gets Batmaned. "Is this working?" "Yes, Diluc, I can hear you loud and clear." "What a wonderful invention these are, aren't they? And the smartphone too, I can gather everything with just a tap of my fingers, how convenient." Indeed, it would be greatly beneficial if these can be duplicated in Teyvat. Let's not jump too far ahead, shall we? We've just started our journey in New York, after all. Let's start with making sure not to accidentally hit anyone too hard with that big sword of yours. It seems that the people here have much higher ethical standards when it comes to bringing justice to criminals. How interesting. I am aware. Alright, make sure your hair is properly covered too. Kaeya. Haha, eager to deliver justice, aren't you? Well, I'm receiving news that. Peter rolls up his mask. He's currently squatting at the top of some building in Manhattan, the nightlife of New York beneath him being the best sight to accompany his hot dog. The streets have been more peaceful lately, and Peter has been taking advantage of the extra spare time to splurge on the greasy street snacks. As if hearing his thoughts, Karen stirs to life. "Hello, Peter. There's a gang fight on 4th Street right now." Come on, Peter demolishes his hot dog in a few quick bites. Can't they just settle down for a few more nights? I wanted to try out the chili one. Despite his complaining, Peter still wastes no time in heading towards the destination that Karen maps out in his mask. As he arrives at the crime scene prepared to fight, however, Peter is greeted by an unexpected sight. What the? Karen's female voice pops up after a moment. Medical scans indicate that all members are unconscious, Peter. Peter frowns. Based on what he can see, it doesn't seem like there was another group of people that knocked them all out. The scene is too clean for that. Initial analysis of scene indicates that the probability of one attacker is 82%, Karen says. Peter straightens slightly. Most people can't take out 7 people like this. Spider-Man, no problem, but he's a superhero, Avengers reserved hero. He notices an odd groove on the wall, long and deep in a horizontal line. What are these? The groove is barely wide enough to fit his finger that he dips in. The edges of the line narrow into sharp points, like a slash. Unsure. Karen says, 3D scan is completed, data awaiting further analysis. There is another fight at Delancey Street, Peter, I would advise you to hurry. Peter nods and steps back, just a bit unwillingly, all right. A claymore? Peter sits up at the projected image that Karen sent. Isn't that like medieval stuff? Who even fights with those antiques? Quote. Ned, who was sitting on Peter's bed, coughs, don't let Hawkeye hear you. Peter rolls his eyes, that's not what I meant. He gestures at the holographic 3D image, which shows a claymore longer than Peter's body. Its blade modified to be considerably wider than the average claymore. Can you imagine how inconvenient it would be to carry this around? Ned shrugs, it's a cool sword. Peter can't exactly argue with that, and sighs. So, can we say that this isn't just some normal New Yorker with a black belt? I mean, this has to be some new vigilante that would be willing to carry a freaking longsword around. Do you want me to inform Mr. Stark about this? Karen asks. Peter thinks for a moment, then shakes his head, no, Karen. I don't want to always depend on Mr. Stark for some small issue. I can handle this on my own. Are these scorch marks? Peter crouches down to observe the blackened ground closer. There's a pile of melted weapons. There's a few bullets that still have a visible shape, and other unidentifiable items right next to him. Peter can guess that it's probably some illegal drug based on the nauseating smell that's filling up the room. Your observation is accurate, Karen responds. Estimated heat required to create this degree of damage is 2000 Fahrenheit. That, Peter knows more than enough science to know how hot that is. It's a miracle that this building hasn't already been burned to the ground, which means that can't just appear in the middle of New York randomly. Are there reports of any enhanced people with fire powers? Quote. Negative. This is the first report. Do you want me to inform Mr. Stark about this? Peter looks around the room. There's none of the signature long slash marks that he's been seeing more and more often recently. 2 enhanced individuals? At the moment, it seems that one has exceptional combat skills with a claymore. He still finds that hard to believe, the other one with fire powers. Peter's mouth is pressed thin as he thinks carefully. He's handled more than fighters, just not a claymore fighter and fire before. No. I can handle this. Peter says, how can I be an Avenger if I can't handle some fire? He was feeling very proud of his independent decision until Karen cuts in. If I remember correctly, Peter, you had previously refused Mr. Stark's offer to be an official Avenger. Peter's smile freezes. That, I wasn't ready at that time. Besides, they later did file me as an official reserve for the Avengers. Karen didn't reply, but Peter swears that he heard a huff from the AI. Anyways, Peter clears his throat. I'll keep an eye out for more of their activity. And if Peter emphasizes the word heavily, if I need Mr. Stark's help, I'll ask him then. Very well, Karen simply says. Peter doesn't know why he's feeling so defensive at those two words, so he drops the topic before he could say anything more stupid. As Peter starts to take pictures of the evidence, he can't help but feel a foreboding apprehension. Too enhanced appearing at such a short interval, it seems more than just like a coincidence. Steve Rogers was having his usual morning run in Lower Manhattan when he sees a few construction workers hanging up a sign on an unopened store. He has been seeing it in construction for several months, so he can't help but stop to examine. Crammed between the massive CVS store and a small Italian restaurant is a vintage-looking store. Steve can see a bar table and several large cabinets, so Steve assumes it to be a bar. He looks back to the sign that the workers are attaching above the glass doors. Angel's Share. Peter sighs, frustrated, as he looks at the screenshot on the laptop. It's been a few days since Peter discovered the fire guy, and since then he's asked Karen to keep an eye out for any suspicious-looking, sword-wielding, fire-blasting people on New York City's surveillance system. Luckily, Karen did manage to get a recording. A figure. Should be a man based on the stature and outfit, hooded and clothed in black from head to toe, wielding the biggest sword that's Peter ever seen in his life. It looks almost as tall as the figure itself, the crimson of the blade visible even through the crappy cameras at night. That's the Claymore guy, Peter says. Although the Claymore guy only appeared in the footage for a brief moment, he can still tell the uncanny prowess in the man's moments. The way he holds the double-handed sword effortlessly in one hand, the way he ducks easily to avoid a fist thrown to the back of his head before disappearing behind a wall. Ned looks over his shoulder and inhales loudly. Damn, that's a sick sword. Yeah, Peter points at the frozen man in the footage. Look, he's holding that sword with one hand. Aren't these swords supposed to be double-handed? Quote. Ned wows behind him. Whoa, it's like Cloud from Final Fantasy, but red. All activity of Claymore guy is at gang activity and street crime, Peter notes. It shouldn't be that hard to find him if we track down the gang he's following. Turns out that the Claymore guy isn't as good at hiding from cameras as Peter thought, and it only took another to see the man firsthand. To his defense, it only took him that long because the man suddenly started appearing all over Manhattan more often than just Lower Manhattan. Hey there. Spider-Man calls out to the hooded man in the alleyway, who immediately turns around at this voice. Nice sword you've got there. I love the red. Quote. To his credit, Claymore guy didn't immediately run away, but instead turns around to face Peter. Most of his figure is hidden in the shadows, but Peter can still see a lot of details of one of the mysterious new, friendly neighbors. For one, the man does not look like a friendly neighbor. The man is wearing a large hooded black cape that covers most of the face, and a black face mask that covers the bottom half. Underneath the cape is an outfit that looks nothing meant for battle. Is that a shirt? Who wears a shirt while fighting 5 people at once? So, Peter gives a small wave. I'm Spider-Man, if you can't tell. You know, the friendly neighbor that's been around here before you came. Not that I'm against you or anything, if you're also doing the neighborhood hero work, but I just wanted to make sure that you are doing those, because, you know, it would be real awkward for me if I was wrong. Peter's quite sure that the man isn't some villain, based on Karen's reports of decreased gang activity and increased saved victims in the areas that Claymore guy has shown up at. But he is a bitsy concerned about the occasional severity that the man has inflicted on the target gang members. The man says nothing, the impressive sword held at one side in a battle-prepared posture. Peter tenses, ready for a hostile response, but the man instead straightens. Effortlessly, he swings the sword in a full circle before sticking the tip a few inches into the ground. That's a cool move. Peter can't help but think. And then, to Peter's surprise, the claymore disappears in the man's grasp amid golden sparkles, then reappearing mid-air behind the man's back. What the? Levitation? Space manipulation? Peter's eyes widen at the unexpected reveal of new powers from the man. This is a large jump from just simple combat skills. Heck, Peter's sure that this can catch the attention of the Avengers. Claymore Guy moves to the right, and Peter reactively moves as well to block him. The man seems to sense his nervousness and takes a step back, the longsword moving with him as if it was actually attached to his back. "I don't mean any harm to you," Claymore Guy says, his voice gravelly deep. Peter instantly gets Batman vibes. "Oh, cool, that's good to know," Peter responds, his voice subconsciously deepening as well. "So you're most definitely not colluding with those gang people, right?" Quote. For a moment, the temperature around Claymore Guy seems to drop, his presence so cold that Peter can't help but shiver as his spider sense tingles. That's an interesting reaction. Does Claymore Guy have history with the gangs around here? However, before Peter could think further, the coldness quickly disappears as Claymore Guy collects himself. "No," the man simply says, Batman style. "Okay, cool," Peter blinks. "I guess it's nice to have someone else taking care of them as well, but just so you understand, I'm still going to have to make sure you're doing everything good after this, okay? It's kinda in my job description, you know?" Quote. Claymore Guy broods, then nods slowly. Peter takes that as a yes. Of course, he still doesn't entirely trust the mysterious guy. But current evidence does show that Claymore Guy is on the good side, so he'll like to give the man a try. Just like how the older Avengers did with him, but without the training wheels. Great. Peter gives double thumbs up to him, until a more important issue strikes him. He quickly drops his hands to scratch his head awkwardly. Also, do you have a code name or something I can call you by? "I really love your sword, the red and everything, but I don't think Claymore is your actual name." The man stands there in silence for so long that Peter almost thought he fell asleep, if not the colder presence that descended around them once more. What on earth did his question hit this time? Finally, Claymore Guy speaks in his deep voice, "Dark Knight." Peter blinks, his mouth moving faster than his mind. "Batman?" Quote. The man feels almost confused for a moment, before he reiterates, "You can call me Dark Knight." Claymore, no, Dark Knight, speaks with a slight rasp, each word like it was being squeezed out of his teeth. It does not help with the Batman reference. Peter can barely resist the urge to say something Robin-like in return, as if Spider-Man wasn't already chirpy enough. "That's a cool name," Peter says, "fits your whole vibe and everything. Say, do you might happen to be super rich or something?" Dark Knight makes a small sound as he shifts further into the shadows. "Don't you have anything else to do?" Diluc waits until Spider-Man figure disappears into the night sky. He lifts a finger to his ear. "Did you hear everything?" "Of course I did. I was only silent because I've heard that Spider-Man has super hearing." "Well?" Diluc asks, "What do you think?" "Well, I am simply ecstatic that you've finally embraced your name, Dark Knight." That being said, I'm also quite curious now about the Batman he mentioned. Diluc's face turns dangerously impassive underneath his covers, Kaeya. Alright, no mood for jokes, I see. Kaeya's smirk is evident in his voice. Let's see, what else to say? Ah yes, don't you think he sounds quite familiar? Diluc is silent for a moment. There's not enough evidence. He pauses again, then says rather grudgingly, I do see the similarity, though. I fully agree with you, Master Diluc. Evidence is always key. Why don't we reconvene to discuss it in person? The closest waypoint near you is at. Neither of them mentions the oddness, other than the whole situation of being in a new world, that accompanies them. Diluc and Kaeya's visions still work, and the fabled waypoints that the traveler has mentioned before that dotted the map of New York City. They've heard the hidden rumors, after all, of the truth about their Celestia, and that taboo book the traveler retrieved from the lost kingdom hidden under Inazuma. If Celestia really is still casting their gaze upon them, not doing anything stupid against it would be the smartest choice. After Spider-Man and Dark Knight's initial meeting, Peter finds that tracking down Dark Knight wasn't actually that hard. The man really doesn't hide from the security cameras that well, even with all the black around him. Peter waits for a few more days before personally going out to find Dark Knight once more. He's greeted with a face of fire. Chapter 4. In which Peter gets roasted. Are you seeing this too? Quote. Yes, I do. That certainly does not look like part of the building's design. I don't remember humans being able to walk through objects either. Remember what the traveler once mentioned? Those waypoints that he can teleport with? Quote. You think this is one of those? Interesting. The appearance does match. I suppose this is something else we brought to here other than just our visions in your pocket of Mora? Quote. Celestia? Now, Diluc, let's not test the limits yet. It has to be still watching us, after all. Well, what do you suggest we do about this, then? Quote. Why don't you try touching it? Quote. Quote ellipsis quote. Don't look at me like that, I'm just joking, Master Diluc. Of course we shouldn't, wait, don't. Quote. Peter was webbing a few criminals onto a lamplight when he saw a familiar bright flash of orange in the distance. Is that? Quote. Peter hadn't finished his question when a visible curl of fire raced into the sky. Yep, definitely the fire guy. Peter had nodded and jumped towards the fire's direction. The fire guy appeared much less than Dark Knight. Dark Knight can be spotted almost every night with resolving street crime or gang activity, while Fire Guy only appeared with illegal drug or weaponry dealings. Peter tried tracking Fire Guy down before, but Fire Guy always disappeared before Spider-Man reached the scene. Now that he finally saw Fire Guy in the middle of action, he wasn't going to let the change slip. Another tight swerve, and Spider-Man arrived at an abandoned-looking warehouse. He can faintly hear gunshots and shouting coming from within, and the broken windows flashed orange from within every few seconds. Peter hurriedly ran to the closest opening, the sounds gunshots and yelling prickling his heart. He didn't bother turning on infrared vision with all the heat emanating from the warehouse. Karen's voice is barely audible as Peter hurled open a metal door. The temperature in there is approximately 60 Fahrenheit higher. Cooling system activated. Thanks, Karen, was all Peter managed to say before the interior's sight seized his attention. The first thing he saw was a mountain of burning crates, a flickering and snarling mess of flames and smoke on the other side of the room. An indescribable foul smell mixed with burning flesh smell hits Peter like a high-speed truck to the face, making him retch uncontrollably. Unfortunately, the built-in filter couldn't block out the smell, and only his heroic sense of hero responsibility propelled him to continue deeper into the fiery gunfight. Several men are lying around on the ground, groaning in pain or unconscious. All of them showed a number of burn injuries, some looking serious enough to leave permanent injuries. Peter's face scrunched behind his mask. What is this fire guy doing? It's not saying that Spider-Man had never injured someone before, but the severity of these injuries feels like the work of an anti-hero or even a villain. "Peter, fire guy, is at your 2 o'clock direction," Karen had said. Peter turned in the said direction to hear a commotion of frantic yelling and gunfire behind a wall of half-burnt cargo. When Peter was about to swing to see what is going on, the yelling and gunfire suddenly stopped, the sounds cut off midway. Right in front of the wall, Peter's spider sense blared in alarm. Without hesitation, he jumped high up into the air. The next second, the entire wall bursts apart as a freaking firebird, a literal bird made from fire, cuts through the boxes. Peter could almost see the feathers on the firebird as it flapped its wings like a blazing trail of fiery death. Peter would almost call it beautiful, if the firebird then hadn't swerved upwards, straight towards him. What the hell? Peter had barely managed as he frantically tried to dodge the sudden attack, but he was mid-air without any way to change his direction immediately, and there was nothing close enough to him to use as a shield. The increased tingling alarm in Peter's brain made the hairs on his nape stand up straight. Motherfuck. Searing pain spread across Peter's face and chest as the firebird had crashed into him, as if a plus-size iron ladle had mistaken him for an ironing board. He can't breathe, it felt like he was inhaling pure heat. Red exclamation marks of "system failure. Suit damaged" popped up in his screen along with the firebird's screech as its form dissipated. Only his instincts helped him from hitting the ground, as he shot a strand of webbing towards a wall away from the source of attack. That, Peter coughed at the taste of ash in his mouth. What was that? Even though the fiery impact had hurt like hell, Peter doesn't feel any obvious injuries on himself for now. Seemed like his suit, heat-resistant aspect had saved him from a lot of trouble. When he looked down, though, he could see that the front of his suit had been damaged, the fabric visibly blackened and burned in several areas. Peter breathed deeply. He had been through worse. He can still do this. Fire Guy was still hiding behind the makeshift wall, so Peter jumped onto the top of half-burned boxes to gain a higher ground before anything else surprising might happen. Peter certainly was surprised, and not in the best way either. A very familiar figure with an even more familiar sword. A figure covered in a black coat, a crimson claymore raised towards him in alert, foreign yet familiar flames flickering at the sword tip. Peter's prepared confronting words caught in his throat. It almost felt like he was breathing in fire again. Despite the heat in the room, his body suddenly felt very cold, an ominous chill racing down his spine for the future. Dark Knight, surrounded by unconscious and badly burnt men, looked up at him silently. "What? Dark Knight?" Peter asks incredulously, because what is happening? Aren't they supposed to be two people? He feels mildly betrayed by this sudden plot twist. You have fire powers?" he asked. It probably wasn't the most intelligent thing he could have said, but he's so surprised that it was all he could manage at this moment. Dark Knight remains silent for a moment, then lowers his sword. I thought you knew. The man simply says in his damned Batman voice. You thought Peter takes a deep breath. Sure, yeah, sure, of course. Why not? Batman on fire, sure. When he stops his sarcasm to think, though, Dark Knight and Fire Guy has indeed never appeared at the same night, and both sides showed similar levels of violence. The hindsight didn't really help with Peter's current feelings, though, unease and wariness making him shift for battle preparation with Dark Knight. Why are you here? He asks. Dark Knight gestures at the charred crates, his meaning clear. Karen scans the contents and soon shows a long list of very illegal chemicals, more than illegal enough to send all the associated men into jail for a very long time. Peter hesitates, then asks again, look, I'm not saying that these guys don't deserve any punishment, but don't you think that you're being a bit too harsh on them? Quote. A long silence from Dark Knight before he finally says, they're not dead. He sounds suspiciously grudging, or maybe that's just because of the Batman tone, they'll recover. I have controlled my fire. Peter looks around at the state of the room. A charred crate collapses to the ground at this exact moment. This is controlled? A burnt circuit in his suit crackles weakly in response. Peter can't help but become more wary of the cloaked vigilante in front of him. Dark Knight seems to have noticed the spider suit's obvious damage and dips his hooded head apologetically. I didn't mean to harm you. I didn't know you were there. Peter has a few doubts that the Firebird just automatically swerves up, but he accepts Dark Knight's explanation. For now. Sure, Peter trails off. The tension between them is still thick, the awkwardness almost as heavy as that car meeting he had with Birdman. Luckily, Karen's voice cuts in. Do you want me to inform the police, Peter? Quote. Yes. Peter hesitates briefly, then adds, tell them to bring in medical aid as well. He looks back towards Dark Knight, who takes a cautious step back. Looks like the wariness isn't one-sided. Peter didn't want to risk pushing this new vigilante into the dark side, though, so he decided to try and keep things stable. Look, man, I don't like being roasted, and I don't entirely agree with some of your methods, but, Peter bites his lip, you're still on the good side, right? Quote. Dark Knight nods. Then I'll forgive you for roasting my suit this time. Peter decides, then quickly adds, not just this time, like, I would appreciate it if you gave me a heads up next time before releasing that cool Firebird. Dark Knight seems to relax by a fraction, thank you. Karen must have pulled a few strings, because the blaring sounds of NYPD quickly surrounds the warehouse. Spider-Man and Dark Knight part ways with lingering caution. Dark Knight disappears back into the shadows while Spider-Man goes to meet the police. Amid the flashing red and blue lights of the numerous police cars and questioning from tired-looking officers, Peter still doesn't know how to feel about this whole Dark Knight thing. He really hopes that he made a right choice. Ever since Tony Stark hired Peter Parker as his intern, life at the Avengers Tower has gotten a lot more lively. And by lively, he meant Friday gaining an ally to distract him from his work. He can't remember how many times the kid has most disrespectfully popped into his personal research lab. Friday must have given the kid the access, the nerve, and politely not politely dragged him away to sleep. Mr. Stark, please, I don't want to carry you, but it's 2:30 and you need to sleep or else your body will collapse, is usually what Peter would say, with a mix of the Parker shyness and Spider-Man threats. To which Tony would usually scoff in response, I'm fine. It always ends in the damned kid either somehow managing to get him to stop his work and enter his bedroom, or gets Friday's permission to fucking lug him into his bedroom. Either way, Tony has, to his dismay, gotten used to being nudged into bed by the kid whenever he pops his head into the lab. Which was why he was taking advantage of Peter not being around tonight to work on his newest Iron Man suit, until the Friday suddenly announces, "Mr. Stark, Peter Parker is coming to your floor." Tony did not startle at the kid's sudden appearance at 2 a.m. "Oh, shit." Tony curses as he accidentally drops a screwdriver on his foot. "Friday, did you call him or something?" "It's not even that late." Quote, "I did not call Peter." Friday's disembodied voice replies, "He seems to be in a state of distress." That got Tony's attention. What? Something happened during his patrol. He discards his work and leaves the lab, and the elevator door opens right as he enters the living room. "Hey, kid, what's the mat?" Tony pauses short at Spider-Man's appearance. The front of Spider-Man's outfit has been blackened from head to torso. There are a few tears in the fabric, revealing an inner layer of fried circuits. In short, not the average look of Spider-Man. Did you got hit by a flamethrower or something? Tony can't help but ask. Peter startles, "What?" He doesn't sound as distressed as Tony thought, more like, lost. "No, well, kind of." Tony crosses his arms. He's already gotten over the initial stabbing panic that he felt when he saw Peter's roasted look, and the Spider-Man outfit has heat resistance, so Peter's state shouldn't be as bad as it looks to be. "What do you mean, kind of?" he asks. Peter takes off his mask, and there's a look of post-adrenaline shock on his face, the kind when you got ambushed, sometimes literally, with reality and survived it. Peter blinks, then finally gives the grand reveal. "I got hit in the face with a sword on fire?" Quote. "What?" Quote. Peter shrinks at Tony's increased volume, not like literally by the sword, but by the fire on the sword. "I know, I could have dodged it, but I thought that the guy only had the sword part, not the fire part." Quote. Tony puts a hand up to stop Peter's babbling. "Okay, kid, calm down." Once Peter shuts up, he continues, "I feel like I'm missing out on some content." "Go from the start, will you? Who is this fire sword guy that you're talking about?" Quote. And so, Peter tells him of one newly born enhanced vigilante running on the streets of New York City. Apparently, Peter had previously thought there was one with the longsword, who the hell fights with a claymore? Tony had asked, to which Peter had vehemently agreed with, and one with the fire powers, but turns out it's one person all along. So, a fire claymore guy, Tony summarizes. He says he's called Dark Knight. Peter corrects him. Tony pinches the bridge of his nose and sighs deeply. "Kid, I don't care if he wants to be Batman or not." He gives his best, disapproving dad glare to Peter, and it has the intended effect. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Quote. Indignation and discomfort flashes across Peter's face, and oh boy, that's a look of teenage rebellion. I thought I had it handled," Peter mumbles, but quickly corrects himself. "No, I can still handle it. I wasn't expecting it to just be Dark Knight all along, but now that I know." "Peter," Tony cuts him off, "calm down. I'm not going to snatch him from you." Peter stammers, and Tony continues, "Look, Peter. I know that you're a good kid, and I've trusted that you can do the good stuff like us since you took down that Toes guy." "Tombs," Peter corrects him with a small voice. Tony glares at him and continues, "The Tombs guy, I even offered you an Avengers seat and everything." Peter does not seem to understand the point and looks at him like a lost puppy. "What I'm trying to say here, Peter," Tony tries to keep his voice normal, because fuck knows how to deal with sneaking teenagers, "is that I'm not going to bench you at the first sign of danger, but you also gotta know that you're not alone. This is New York, for Christ's sake. It's stupid." Tony pauses to think of a better wording. It's always better to go into a fight with assistance. Peter looks ashamed. Tony does not feel guilty. Spider-Man is still young, and there are lessons that need to be learned to be a better and smarter hero. Especially when Tony himself has already tripped and fallen painfully to learn the same lesson. "You're right, Mr. Stark," Peter finally mumbles. "I guess I could have asked more than just Karen. It probably would have been much faster." After a moment, though, his head jerks up with a defiant glint. "But, I still think I can handle this." "Really?" Tony claps a hand on Peter's shoulder. "Sure, Spider-Boy. I would appreciate it if you could update me more about this wannabe Batman, and I won't descend with my Iron Man glory unless you asked. Fair?" Quote. Peter nods reluctantly. He doesn't look like he's going to listen, but that's fine, because Tony's not planning to idly sit by either. "Great." Tony lifts his hand, which is now blacker than before with the soot. "Now, do you have the stuff to fix your suit at home?" Quote. Peter shakes his head, and Tony decides to do the nice thing. "Why don't you stay overnight here then? It's Saturday anyways. Give your Aunt May a call, and you can fix your suit here tomorrow." Peter looks at him with shock. "Wait, really? What about Cap and everyone else?" Quote. "What, you think I don't have 1 or 10 spare rooms?" Tony steers the boy towards the elevator. "Come on, kid. Get your phone out so we can get you night-night into a bed and I can go back to the lab." Peter nods absent-mindedly, apparently still surprised at Tony's invitation. Honestly, what sort of an image does he have in the teenager's brain? Then whips back around. "The lab?" Peter repeats. There's nothing threatening or dangerous in the tone, but Tony suddenly feels pressure. "Mr. Parker, it is currently 2:23 a.m. Friday the Trader Supplies. I would greatly appreciate it if you could assist me in getting Tony to join you." Tony is not feeling defensive against Peter's accusing look. Friday. The next day, when Peter wakes up and trudges into the living room, he's greeted with an unexpected sight. "Mr. Rogers, Mr. Captain America?" He practically squeaks at the man sitting by the kitchen island. All traces of grogginess in his brain are wiped clean in an instant. Steve, in a bafflingly normal white t-shirt and denim pants, looks back at him with a warm smile. "Oh hey, Peter. I thought I heard someone entering this floor last night. Was that you?" Quote. Peter nods. "Yeah, that was me. Did I wake you up, Mr. America, Mr. Rogers?" Steve lets out a soft laugh. "Please, Peter, Steve works just fine. And no, I was still awake at that time." The blonde man gestures towards the table, revealing a plate of pancakes. "I made a few extra pancakes. Do you want some?" Quote. "Wait, really?" Peter asks, because Holy Thor is Captain America giving him Captain America-made pancakes? Of course, Steve stands up to get a plate from a cabinet. "How many do you want?" And so, Peter has the honor of eating Captain America-made breakfast after his very first night at the Avengers Tower. Steve keeps piling pancakes onto his plate, to which Peter has to keep thanking for in the most awkward starstruck teenager manner. After a while, footsteps patter heavily behind Peter's back, which turns out to be Tony in his disgruntled state of just waking up. "Oh hey, kid," Tony mutters as he walks straight for the coffee machine, "leave me 2 pancakes." Steve frowns disapprovingly. "I could make more if you asked, Tony." "No time, no need." Tony waves his hand dismissively. He inhales his first cup of coffee, then puts it back for a refill. "I have to finish the newest suit by this week. Besides, Spider-Boy's got his own stuff to do." Steve opens his mouth to say something else, but Peter stops him. "He's right, Mr. Raj, Steve. I have to repair my suit today as well. Thanks a lot for the pancakes." Steve's face relaxes back into a pleasant smile. "Anytime, Peter." Peter's face cracks into an uncontrollably large smile. Before anything else could happen that would further ruin Spider-Man's reputation, he turns around with a plate of pancakes to join Tony by the elevator. "So, kid," Tony says nonchalantly as he takes a pancake out of the plate, "what does Batman Dark Knight look like? Does he have the cat ears?" Chapter 5. In which Diluc gets Bruce whined. "You've plotted it at the wrong street. It's at the 42nd Street, not 44th. Ah, you're right. That's the waypoint between the 2 columns in the Grand Control, right?" Quote. Grand Central. "And yes, it's that one. Haha, I'll get the name right next time." The breathtaking design of the building must have taken my mind away during that time. HMPH, it's not as clean or organized as the Favonius Cathedral. Well, there's a lot more people in this city than Mondstadt. 8 million people. Can you believe that? Quote. The amount of people in this world is indeed astonishing. Did you unlock the one under the Avengers Tower? Quote. No, I haven't. I've heard of the many stories of that Tony Stark. Iron Man. I need to make sure we won't look suspicious when we go there. Smart choice. What's that one? Quote. Oh, well, I stumbled across that one a few days ago during one of my excursions. HMPH, no need to be so vague. You can just say, gang activity. Oh, haha, but Master Diluc, but what if the mighty Dark Knight hears me? I can't risk letting him ruin my plans. He's a bit of a brute, don't you think? Quote. Kaeya. After Peter finishes fixing his outfit by noon, he heads back to his apartment, and runs into Kaeya in the hallway. Hi, Kaeya. He waves at the man. Kaeya looks up from his phone and smiles at him, and greets him in that usual silky tone of his, "Ah, Peter. Back so early? The day has only just begun." Oh, Peter's tongue trips over itself as he hurriedly explains, I was doing, intern stuff at my intern place. I stayed there last night because it was a lot of work, and I just finished it this morning. Kaeya frowns. That doesn't sound like a pleasant experience, to be working overnight. Peter can hear the disapproval from the man's tone, and he resists the urge to explain further. What if he slips up? Where is this place you're working at? Kaeya asks. Peter pauses in hesitation. He doesn't like to spread his Stark internship around. His classmates will never believe him, Flash will be even more of a pain in the ass, and there's just the Spider-Man issue that makes it even more complicated. But Peter looks at Kaeya's waiting expression. Kaeya's a cool and nice person. He doesn't seem like the kind of man that would laugh when he says that he's Tony Stark's intern, or ask too many questions about his personal life. I'm Stark Industries intern. Peter pauses to examine Kaeya's reaction, and when he finds none, he continues, "It's usually not like this, really. It's just that Mr. Stark sometimes works too much, and I had to help Friday in." Peter flushes red. He's yammering again. However, Kaeya only tilts his head with no signs of jeering. "Tony Stark? I'm still very new to this place. Is that the billionaire, the Iron Man person?" Kaeya asks with a curious expression. Peter nods a bit tersely. He's still waiting for the final reaction. Kaeya smiles warmly. "Wow, that's really impressive, Peter. I can tell you're smart, but I didn't know you were this smart." Quote, You believe me?" Peter looks at Kaeya in surprise. Kaeya shrugs, "Why shouldn't I? I can tell that you're a good man, Peter, and you're not the lying type either." Peter feels his cheeks heat up, even when his heart twinges at the mention of him not being the lying type. "Thank you, Kaeya. I really appreciate it, man." Kaeya pats his shoulder reassuringly. "Anytime, Peter." He opens his door and gestures in. "Do you want to come in for a while? Diluc's still sleeping, and I don't have any work today." "Mr. Diluc's still sleeping?" Peter remembers the last time he checked his phone it said 11:15 a.m. Doesn't he have any company thing to do? Quote. Kaeya smiles, "Oh, don't worry, Peter. He was too tired from last night's work, so I took over for him." Peter can't help but feel surprised. He always thought that the two brothers don't work together, since he's never seen them together before. "So?" Kaeya prompts Peter out of his momentary thinking, "Want to come in? I'm recently in the process of catching up on this country's culture by watching its films." That got Peter movie nerd Parker's attention. "Oh, cool. Do you want any recommendations?" "Thanks for the offer, but I'm afraid it'll have to be next time." "I already have one in mind." Kaeya's grin turns into a smirk. "I've heard that the Nolan, Batman, series is a classic?" Quote. Diluc walks into the living room neatly dressed but still bleary at 12 o'clock. He stops at the sight in front of him. "What are you two doing?" Quote. Peter, who is holding a batarang made of aluminium foil in his hands, freezes at the dry tone. Kaeya, who is holding a half-made batarang, turns around to look at Diluc with a smug smile. "Oh ho! Look who's late to the party." The blue-haired man points at the TV screen, where it shows a man in some dark cave with bats around him. "We're watching Batman." Diluc looks at the screen, then at Kaeya, then at the batarangs. "I see." Somehow, his voice became even flatter than before. Peter swallows nervously at the tone, but Kaeya's smile simply widens. "Oh, don't be so dull, Diluc. I've heard it's a great film, and Batman is apparently one of the most famous superheroes on screen." Out of Peter's sight, Kaeya's smile turns positively evil. "The Dark Knight. Such a cool name, don't you think?" Quote. Peter nods vigorously besides Kaeya. TCH. Diluc lets out an audible exhale of exasperation. His look now borders on a glare. "What do you want, Kaeya? I need to get to work." Kaeya waves his hands. "Oh, don't worry about that. I've already done it for you." He pats the couch on the side without Peter. "Come on, watch it with us. It's just starting to get good. I feel like there's a lot in common between you and Bruce Wayne." Peter nods once, then stops in visible confusion. "Kaeya, it's Bruce Wayne." Kaeya laughs. "Oh, is it? I'm sorry, I must have heard the lines wrong then." He turns back to Diluc. who looks like he wanted to jump out of window. Well? Peter did say it was very good. Peter looks at Diluc hopefully. Diluc lets out a loud sigh. He looks extremely pained. Fine. Peter leaves Kaeya and Mr. Diluc's apartment after an hour of watching a Batman film. It was a very interesting experience, to say the least. Kaeya finds the oddest things hilarious. A billionaire as a vigilante? Haha. While Mr. Diluc remains utterly silent. Even though Peter isn't sitting next to the red-haired man, he can feel the sheer testiness from him. When he closed their door, he can almost immediately hear Mr. Diluc saying through the door, "Really, Kaeya?" Quote. "What?" Came Kaeya's blurred voice, though its amusement is still clear. "I think it's a great film. A very interesting story. You should watch the next two with me." Peter's spider hearing allows him to catch Mr. Diluc's inhale. "There's two more?" Quote. "Haha, of course. Did it really seem like it ended with this one? Ma?" Kaeya trails off, and there's a brief silence before he continues, "Anyways, you're watching them with me." Mr. Diluc simply makes an unhappy sound, but says nothing else. Peter hears nothing else after that other than their shuffling movements, and turns to go back to his own home. Manhattan, night. When one sees something being set in preparation for months, they would naturally have the urge to check it out when they finally see it complete and open for use. Perhaps that's why Steve Rogers chose to push the mahogany brown door into lit and opened Angel's share. It could also just be because it was night and he felt like having a drink, and this one was right in front of him, but who knows? He likes it practically immediately. The bar is designed in a very vintage yet comfortable fashion, with rich brown panning the walls and furniture, gentle yellow lights and torch-like wall lamps illuminating the glasses, and countless small paintings and posters frame the wall. There's no one in the bar yet. Welcome. Steve stops once more at the sight of the reddest-haired bartender in front of him. The man is wearing a simple white shirt with a black vest. Is that even real? Red hair tied back into a low ponytail. The man looks at him with an expressionless face, and Steve quickly steps out of his momentary surprise to smile at him. "Hello. Are you the owner of this place?" Quote. The man nods. Steve notices that the man has red eyes, just as red as his hair. Does he have some type of contacts on to fit the hair? Steve smiles. "I saw that the bar finally opened." "Congratulations." The man looks at him for a few more seconds, then dips his head. "Thank you." His voice doesn't really sound like he's from around here. "A newcomer? What can I get you?" the man asks. Steve slides onto a bar stool. "I don't have anything in particular. How about your signature?" Quote. The man nods, and turns to face the impressive wall of liquor and wine behind him. His expression never changed from its impassive state, but Steve can tell that the man is not a threat. He stops himself, and guilt prickles him for a moment. He's just a bartender. Of course a bartender, no matter how shockingly colored, wouldn't be a threat. "Did you have a bad day?" the man asks him. He sounds stilted, like he's not used to doing this. Steve lets out a small sigh, and smiles with a shake of his head. "It's fine. I just realized a bad habit of mine." "I see," the man simply says as he pours sparkling wine into glass. "Would you like to talk about it?" Quote. Steve hesitates, then shakes his head. "Sorry, but I think I'll pass this time. It's not the lightest thing to talk about in a bar like this." The bartender nods, very well, and didn't push further. Steve already likes the bartender. It didn't take him long to finish whatever he's making. Death afternoon. The bartender pushes forward the glass. The liquid is a shining golden, bubbles floating up from the bottom to disappear soundless at the surface. Steve accepts the glass, thanks. The moment his first sip passes through his throat, his eyes widen. This is really good. He takes another sip. Really good. How did you make it? Quote. Weren't you looking the whole time? The man asks, his tone dry. It's sparkling wine with dandelion wine. A classic of my hometown. He pauses, and his expression turns flat, and my brother's favorite. You must be a great brother, then, Steve replies pleasantly. The man's answer also answered his previous thoughts about the man's origin. Where are you from? Quote. Another country. The man pauses, Europe. He doesn't elaborate. Steve doesn't push and simply nods, ah, I see. And your brother? Is he here in New York too? Quote. Yes. He's doing his own work, but we help each other occasionally. The man's expression somehow turns even flatter. He's the main reason why I opened this bar. Steve chuckles. He has a faint sense that the man's brother is much more of an alcoholic than the man itself is. Well, I'm glad that you decided to do so. I never had tasted something like this before, it's great. I'm sure this bar will gain popularity soon. Thank you. The man doesn't look pleased, but then again, he hasn't looked like anything in particular so far. I'm not trying to make this into a big business, but I appreciate it. Steve finishes his drink, then orders another one. The bar is silent except for the soft piano music playing in the background, and its soothing atmosphere lulls Steve into a relaxed state, one that he hasn't felt for quite a while. This is nice, he thinks to himself. Maybe he should get away from the Avengers Tower more often. The peace doesn't last long, though. Right when the last drop slides past his tongue, his phone buzzes in his pocket. Tony Stark. Stop drinking and get your 10 out of 10 ass back here. Fury's ranting. Steve sighs at Tony's brash text, but takes his wallet out to pay the bill. To his pleasant surprise, it's far less than he expected it to be. As the bartender accepts the card and turns to do his part, Steve takes the time to reply. Steve Rogers. How do you know I'm drinking? Tony Stark. Your location, duh. Tony Stark. Angel's Share? Really? Sounds like some gathering place for mob gangs. Steve Rogers. Don't say that, Tony. The bartender is a great guy. He also makes excellent drinks. Best hero of NYC. Boo. Steve shakes his head in amusement, then clicks Tony's profile picture to change his name back to Tony Stark. Steve Rogers. Stop hacking my phone. No. Can't stop me. Before Steve could change the name again, the bartender returns in front of him. Here. The bartender returns the card. Thank you, Diluc. Ah, thank you for the excellent drinks, Diluc. Have a good night, and I wish you a successful opening of your bar. Diluc dips his head in thanks. After a brief moment of hesitation, he takes out a business card and hands it to Steve. I won't be bartending every night. Since you're the first customer, I'll give you some extra benefit. If you feel like coming here, tell me a day beforehand. Oh, Steve shakes his hands in surprise, there's no need for this. I'd hate to interfere your business. The man shakes his head, and his mouth, for the first time this evening, quirks into a small smile. "No need to be so polite," he says, "you've been a great customer, and a great start for this place." Steve can only choose to put both cards into his wallet with a smile. "I can't say no to that, then. I'll definitely come by again. Hit me with some evening news, Karen." Of course, Peter. There is a traffic happening at the 5th Avenue 13th Street. Very funny, Karen. Thank you, Peter. Stark Industries stock market has decreased by 0.67% today. New York City will have its first snow day tomorrow. Mentions of a new gang, Teyvat, has appeared since last week. Your literature essay is due in 2 days, which you currently have written 57 words out of the 2,000 word count requirement. Hey! Have you been spying on my schoolwork? Quote. You have asked me to aid your schedule for completing schoolwork in time. I am simply reminding you of an incoming deadline. Fine, what was that Taylor Group thing you just said again? Quote. There has been reports of a new street group named Teyvat appearing in New York City. Related reports are mainly from Queens and Lower Manhattan. That's a leap. No Brooklyn? Quote. There has been, but not significant. Weird. Remind me to check it out in like a week or so. I got a first deal with my homework and Avengers stuff, you know? Quote. Of course, Peter. Yeah, and, wait, is Mr. Stark calling me? Exclamation mark. Quote. Angels share official channel. 1 post. 1.1k followers. 0 following. Less than man image of Diluc in his bartender outfit, pouring wine into a tumbler with an expressionless face to an unknown customer. Only a dark-skinned hand can be seen. Angel share official. Angel's share is open. Come find us in a hot red-haired bartender at XXX Avenue XXX Street in Manhattan. Open from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day. 2,392 likes. View all 21 comments. No life. His name? That hair dye though, damn. Chapter 6. In which the dogs, actually wolves, get retributed. Are you sure that's what you want to call it? Teyvat? Really? Hey, don't look so disappointed, Master Diluc. I think it sounds quite nice. Besides, I'm just feeling homesick, haha. Quote. What, you don't believe me? I didn't say that. Fine. If you really want a proper answer, think of it as a contingency for unforeseeable future events. You think others from our world might arrive here too? I don't know, Diluc. We fell into this world because a portal appeared beneath our feet while we were fighting those rift wolves. Who knows if that might happen again? Quote. HMPH. And you choose to start a gang? Don't say it like that, Master Diluc. I prefer the term, information network. It's not so different to what we have in Mondstadt, isn't it? Peter in his Spider-Man outfit looks around the main room helplessly. Is the world ending or something? Quote. He's currently in the wide, spacious living room in the Avengers floor, Avengers Tower, which now no longer seems so spacious with all the people in there. Tony is taking up an entire sofa with his impressive sprawl. Steve and Sam are looking at Tony in exasperation. Clint's head is barely visible in a vent. Bruce and Natasha are sitting by the window, watching everyone's interactions with a small smile. There's a flurry of holograms in the middle of the room, filled with flying bits of information like space stone, disruptions, intruders, and a bald head amongst them. "Oh hey, kid, already here?" Tony sees him and sits up. Good, hurry up and sit here." I'm sure that Fury has enough heart to stop some of his ranting if there's a kid here. Fury's irritated face in one of the holograms snaps. "I can hear that, Stark. I can see Spider-Man's here." Peter scurries to stand beside Tony, hovering behind him in uncertainty. "So, what's going on? Where's Thor and War Machine? Are we going on an Avengers mission?" Quote. The director of S.H.I.E.L.D. looks at Peter, who shirks at the intense gaze. War Machine is busy. Thor is busy. The last word came out as a gritted sound. Clint's head peeks out. Thor is drunk in Russia. Fury closes his eye and mutters something about Bifrost his ass back, before looking back at Peter. "As for your second question, not yet. But it could be in the future." Peter didn't really get it. "Okay." Quote. Basically, Tony interrupts Fury's cryptic answer. Portal 2 happening in New York. Stark. Peter gets it now. Oh. So, like, there's disruptions in our space-time. Portals opening in New York? He rubs his hands together. So, another alien attack? Quote. No one answers for a moment. Tony looks delighted that Peter understood his answer perfectly. Steve looks utterly lost. Fury looks like he had some words in mind, but luckily didn't say them. You got the first half right, Spider-Man, Fury instead says, and thankfully says nothing else. Natasha fills in Fury's dramatic silence. We've been catching signals of energy anomalies similar to Chitauri attack, but on a much smaller scale. There are currently no reports or mentions of aliens either, so we're still investigating the meaning behind these disturbances. Basically, they got nothing if it wasn't for my kind assistance, Tony finishes. Fury glares at him. What Iron Man is trying to say, he and S.H.I.E.L.D. worked together to develop a system to detect these irregularities as soon as they appear. More like I developed it all by myself. To alert the Avengers too. An alarm blares in the living room. Peter jumps at the sudden sound. Friday's voice surrounds the standing Avengers in a soothing voice, irregularity detected. Well, that was a nice demonstration. Thanks, Friday. Tony yawns as he stands up. He looks around. So, who's coming to check out the potential earth-shattering danger? Quote. Tony. Steve sighs as he straightens. Please, be serious. I am very serious. Tony does not sound serious at all. Steve sighs but says nothing, and instead looks around the room. Tony, Sam, Peter, you three are the fastest to get there. The rest stay put in case this was a distraction, or if something else happens. You got it, Cap, stealing the fun I see. Clint calls out from the vent. Despite the light-hearted tone, Peter can tell that he's relieved to not be there. Peter knows about his traumatic experiences related to portals. Steve turns to Peter. Peter. Can you carry me there? Quote. Peter nods. They've done this several times. Spider-Man's webs are more than strong enough to haul Captain America with him. You got it, Cap. Quote. Still sore about me giving you a roller coaster ride? Tony asks from the side. Steve gives him a flat look. Spider-Man hasn't dropped me yet, so I'll trust him more than you, Tony. Rude. Did you feel that? I did. Interesting. I suppose our link to our world is stronger than we thought. Or perhaps it's strengthened after we came here? That's not the point, Kaeya. You can feel it too, don't you? It's the abyss. I do, Master Diluc. I suppose we must check it out. Oh, you should probably change into your Batman outfit too. Quote ellipsis quote. Ah, come on now, don't look at me like that. I didn't choose the awfully dark look for you. Besides, I trust that you would be able to handle them without my help. You're not coming along? No, I will, but I'll stay in the shadows. Based on my observations, the security systems of this world are incredibly fast and efficient. I'm sure that those famed Avengers will notice something so otherworldly as this, and I'm not suitable to meet them yet. HMPH. So, you're pushing me out instead? We have been planning to meet them anyways. They're the most reliable source we have to find a way back home. I trust that Dark Knight's appearance will be an excellent start. Or, they could think that I'm also from the Abyss and see me as a threat. Well, that depends on your communication skills then, Master Diluc. I thought you were the one everyone looks to when it comes to communication skills, Kaeya. Please, you flatter me. You're the one making business deals left and right with merchants all over Teyvat. I'm just a mere cavalry captain in the Knights of Favonius that no one cares about. You undermine yourself. Ahem. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. I'll always be following you from the shadows. While you establish contact with the Avengers, I would like to get a closer look at that interesting Spider-Man. I see. Fine. Do keep an eye on him, will you? I have a hunch that we are very close to something interesting. Peter wasn't expecting to see such large dogs at the location. Correction, flying dogs. 4 wolf dog creatures with purple black or golden black fur, ominous black mist and particles swirling around their bodies like some creepy dog psychic. What the heck is that? Peter can't help but ask Captain America as they land on top of a low building, Falcon alongside them. The black hero looks at the sight below, and his mouth makes an O shape in surprise. Well, that's an upgraded look. There is a blue-purplish portal in the middle of the already evacuated street, star-like particles swirling around it in an eerie glow. It's certainly not the Chitauri style. I don't know, Spider-Man, Steve, now fully in Captain America mode, replies, his mouth pressed tightly in a calculating frown. If it really is the Chitauri, they've certainly changed their style. I don't know, Cap, I'm personally digging the royal purple here. It's giving me celestial tarot vibes. Iron Man, who is hovering above them, interjects, not so sure that they would choose to evolve into dogs, though. Friday, can you check if these McFly dogs exist on Earth? Quote. Unfortunately, Mr. Stark, there are indeed no records of any species on Earth that matches the morphological traits of such species. Biological scans of enemies show no similarity to the Chitaurus. So, another type of aliens? Peter looks down at the flying dog wolf things. They're not doing anything yet, just circling around the portal slowly. The longer he looks at them in the portal, though, the queasier he feels. He resists the urge to look away. Mr. Stark, Cap? That portal thingy doesn't feel so right. I get what you mean, Captain America replies, they're not doing anything yet, but I'm feeling more unsettled than I should be. Looking at them feels wrong, like, something rotting? Quote. Wow, real poetic, you too. Iron Man says, I don't feel rotting or anything. Sam? I'm fine too. Falcon's voice is just as light as Iron Man's in Peter's comms. Maybe it's a superhuman thing? Iron Man flies down to confront the alien dogs. His voice deceptively lighthearted, superhuman or not. As long as the source is gone, then it'll be fine, am I right? Wait, Iron Man, do not engage. Captain America calls in alarm. Iron Man, however, hits the ground before Steve could stop him, and impressive number of varying firearms extends from his arms and back in a flurry. Don't worry, Cap, I've got enough for a battalion of Chitauri. Iron Man says with a very calm voice. While the lasers and some very big guns were in activation, no one will get hurt. Peter hears Captain America mutter something very un-Captain America in exasperated frustration, right before the tall man jumps off the building. Spider-Man, Falcon, cover us. Alright. The moment the word leaves Peter's mouth, he notices that the alien dogs have stopped their circling. They've noticed them. Two flies towards Iron Man, one flies up to meet Captain America, and the last one freaking disappears with a puff of purplish black mist. Immediately, Spider-Man's entire body tingles violently, and without thinking, he lashes out a web towards Captain America, instincts screaming at him to pull. Careful. A surprised grunt leaves Captain America at the strong tug at his back that stops his momentum, and Spider-Man's overwhelming strength pulls Captain America back midair. Whoosh! An alien dog reappears midair with a flash of black and purple, and its incredibly sharp claws swipe at where Steve was just a split second ago. Falcon witnesses the entire exchange and quickly stops himself from jumping off as well, and says, "Okay, what the hell?" Captain America didn't get to chide his friend's use of language, as Peter hurriedly lifts the man back beside him. "Cap, are you alright?" Quote. The man nods, "I'm fine." "Thank you." He looks down at Iron Man. "Tony, be careful, they're violent, and they teleport." "Okay, now that's just unfair." Iron Man complains, right before his weapons simultaneously burst into gunfire mode, instantly covering the approaching alien dogs' figures with bullets and beams. "I'm going to go down again and support Iron Man." Falcon, stay midair and keep on the lookout for more midair stunts. Captain America looks at Peter, his blue eyes through his mask shining in steeled determination. "Spider-Man comes down with me. Watch our backs in case they appear behind us. You got it?" Peter's back subconsciously straightens at Captain America's look, of course. Captain America nods, and he leaps down from the building once more. "Let's go. We're not letting any aliens destroy New York City again." A rush of pride and determination, the kind that Spider-Man gets when he's about to stop something dangerous, fuels his body with adrenaline. Without hesitation, he follows Captain America into the fight, and his body instinctively raises a hand to web at the nearest alien dog that is floating in front of them. Just as he had guessed so, the alien dog only wavers slightly at the sudden pressure. "Hey, bad dog." Peter uses the momentum of the centripetal force to slam his body into the dog, kicking it out of the way to clear a path for Captain America to land. "Great job, Spider-Man." Captain America lands on top of an alien dog and slams his shield on its head with a resounding clang. Peter winces at the sound. "Toughened skin too?" The alien dog under Captain America barely wavers under the force, and quickly recovers with a backflip. Captain America scrambles to gain purchase, only for the alien dog to disappear and leave the man midair. As he lands on the ground, Captain America says, "You can't be carried along when they teleport, watch out for that." The moment he lands, a rift similar to the portal appears right beside him for a split second, quickly followed by the alien dog. Falcon swoops down and kicks the alien dog aside before it could react. "It's alright, Cap, just do your thing, and we'll make sure you won't get slashed." The four works together in smooth teamwork to keep up with the attack patterns of the four creatures, and Friday quickly gathered enough data to predict the direction of the alien dog's teleporting attacks to turn the tide in their favor. However, once they started to land more hits onto the alien dogs, they quickly began to realize that things were so simple as it was with the Chitauri. Iron Man's firepower only pushed them back, Captain America's shield only stuns them momentarily, and Falcon could not break their hide. What are they made out of? Vibranium. Iron Man complains as he narrowly dodges a swipe. Hold on a bit longer, Tony. Hawkeye's voice suddenly cuts in. We're on our way. Peter punches an alien dog flying, which didn't do much because it simply stopped itself mid-air, as he asks, "Wait, you've been watching?" Of course, Black Widow's cool voice answers him. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been closely monitoring and analyzing the unknown creatures' data the moment they appeared on camera. You boys look like you need help, so we're coming. Even Thor. Cut 2. Fury yells, almost a scream into his phone, "I don't care what you must do to get into Russia. I need you to haul Thor's motherfucking ass out of the bar, shove the goddamn hammer into it, and get him here." Quote. Back to. Probably not Thor, Hawkeye says. "Don't worry, we'll be enough for your cavalry." Iron Man sniggers, he's so done for when he's back, oh phew. Captain America saves Tony from getting slashed with his shield. Language. At one point, Peter was able to webs an alien dog's paws together thanks to Iron Man's help, but before they could do anything else, his webs quickly dissolves into useless strands, and the alien dog springs free. Guys, I think they have some corroding trait or something. Peter said into their channel, "My webs dissolved when I tried to web one." Quote. Well, that's just fantastic, Iron Man says sarcastically. Friday, anything else you noticed about these dogs other than the impenetrable skin? Levitation, space manipulation and corrosion. Mobility of enemies have decreased by 13%. Friday's cool voice only adds to the tense atmosphere like a bucket of ice water. Visible damage is negligible. What? Peter exclaims as he dodges a swipe. I mean, I can tell they're thick, but 13%. Affirmative. I don't like these fucking dogs, Iron Man announces loudly. Is anyone going to stop me from using one to test my new suits after this? Quote. Language. I don't think that's the main issue right now, Cap. Iron Man pours a barrage of gunfire onto the alien dog, which only pushes it back by a few meters. Actually, we should go back to the corrosion part Spidey was talking about, because I feel like some parts of my suit is. Incoming person detected. Friday suddenly says, they'll arriving at the scene in 10 seconds from 23rd Street. What? What are they doing here? Is it a civilian? Iron Man asks with a slightly raised voice. Captain America, who is besides Peter, looks at the direction Friday just reported with an alarmed expression. Unlikely. Warning, abnormal temperature increase detected. Abnormal energy detected. Abnormal. Behind you. Falcon pulls Iron Man to the side, and Peter quickly sees the reason why. A dark figure surrounded in flames, without any warning, leaps out from the shadows of an alley and rushes straight for the nearest alien dog. Unlike everything they've been doing, the effects of the fire were immediate. Boom. The impact between the newcomer and the alien dog seems to shake the ground, kicking up a flurry of dust. The alien dog howls in evident pain, and with a familiar flash of red, poof, it disappears, leaving a mini vortex behind that sucks its surrounding particles into nothingness. Peter has no time to wonder about why only that did something, though, because Dark Knight. His voice almost cracks with surprise. Without a doubt, with that all-black hooded outfit and the signature crimson and insanely big claymore, and most importantly, the fire, it all supports the fact that it was Dark Knight who just one shot killed the alien dog. What is happening? Peter's mask eyes widens at the unexpected vigilante. He thought Dark Knight was just another badass enhanced vigilante that chose New York City as his new home, but now everyone is momentarily stunned at how Dark Knight lands heavily on the street, runs towards an alien dog that is still midair, then jumps towards it with inhuman strength. The noticeable sword blazes with roaring flames, and its crimson blade carves out a beautiful yet deadly arc in the air as Dark Knight. Dark Knight reaches an inhuman height above the alien dog, his hands raising the claymore high above his head like it weighs nothing. At this moment, the tension around him heightens to a searing degree, and then boom! Crimson flames engulf the alien dog instantly. Spider-Man, you know him? Captain America asks him with a serious tone. Yeah. Kind of. Peter answers, his eyes still fixed on the way Dark Knight faces off the two remaining alien dogs at once, and how he is able to dodge each attack without looking, like he can sense where the alien dogs would reappear. He appeared recently and fought street crime and drugs around my area. I met him twice, he's said he's on the good side, but I don't really know much about him other than that. Peter's voice trails off timidly under Steve's look. Captain America's expression and tone softens. I see. Don't worry, I'm not interrogating you, I just need to make sure that he's not a threat and can handle those creatures. As if answering his words, Dark Knight single-handedly throws his claymore towards one of the alien dogs, its momentum so fast that one would almost think the heavy sword, which is way longer and heavier than the average claymore, was made out of engulfing the creature's howls in an instant. Peter leans back slightly at the heat. Yeah, I think he's fine without us. Keep him there until we arrive. Black Widow's voice comes clipped through the comms. Fury's got a few questions for him. Peter frowns under his mask under the implied sentence. He knows the mysterious organization and its paranoid director enough to guess the amount of suspicion Dark Knight is going to receive, from the who he is all the way to the why he can injure those alien dogs. It's not that he doesn't understand. It's understandable to be cautious when an unknown powerful enhanced individual's motive and background are dangerously unclear. But, Peter has a gut feeling that Dark Knight is not an enemy, and can't help but worry that S.H.I.E.L.D's standard reaction will help nothing. A burst of blinding light shakes the ground. Dark Knight raises his claymore with both hands to his right, and the fire that was infused on the blade shoots meters high up with a blazing roar. Wait, he's to burn the buildings. Hawkeye calls out in alarm. As for the Avengers on site, should we? Peter gestures helplessly at the mass of fire. Stop him before he sets everything on fire. Quote. The thought of this entire area possibly turning into ashes makes his heart wrench. He remembers the way the warehouse where he first met Dark Knight was drowning in fire, the charred crates and repulsive odors that was left behind. But at the same time, he also remembers the numerous places that were miraculously intact despite all the scorch marks, back when he still thought Fire Guy and Claymore Guy were two people. Still, none of them looked as serious as now. Can he keep still the fire under control? Peter thinks worriedly. I think we might be a bit late. Captain America answers tensely, concerned eyes fixed at what is about to happen. But we can minimize the damage if the fire gets out of hand. Support is on the way to prevent the fire hazard, Black Widow immediately says, and Peter can catch the wisp of worry that has wormed into the enigmatic woman's tone. Falcon, who is still above them, cuts in, "Wait, the fire's changing." Within seconds, the narrow column of fire broadens into a new shape. The flickering tips of the fire forms into feathers, and a bird's melodic shrill pierces the street as a phoenix is fully formed from within the flames. In the comms, Iron Man whistles, "I see. Batman Dumbledore." "What?" Captain America the Grandpa asks. Never mind, the Firebird's about to do something." The phoenix obediently waits on the blade like a nocked arrow as its body continues to solidify, its feathers shining brightly with intensifying energy. Even from this distance, everyone can feel the overwhelming presence of the hooded man, like an awakening predator fixing its gaze on its prey. Peter's spidey sense rings at the dangerous presence. He realizes that he's holding his breath in apprehension, but also in anticipation for what's about to come. Dark Knight steps forward, fire blooming in a circle under him, and swings the blade towards the alien dog. Burn! The phoenix shoots forward with a beautiful yet deadly streak of light, wings stretched wide like a bright curtain, a quick but grand finale for the poor target. Heat fills the air, and Peter feels like the breath he just inhaled in surprise is scorching his throat. Without any surprise, the last alien dog disintegrates into nothingness when the phoenix encompasses its entire form. Can I say that I feel bad for the last dog? Tony fills in the silent channel, bit of an overkill, if you ask me. As if hearing Tony's words, the phoenix's ethereal body of flame swerves up in a graceful curve, and spreads its dissipating wings wide above the street before fully dissolving into a most spectacular shower of sparks. Bravo! Quote. "Please, Tony, be a little more serious," Steve sighs, "we still have the aftermath to deal with." They look towards Dark Knight, who looks back at them. The flames around him and his sword are long gone, and his hood is still intact, another small show of control over the fire. The vigilante's face is obscured, and it only heightens the man's mysterious and cold, which is ironic, considering the amount of burning that just happened presence. Based on the way everyone tensed slightly, they must have gotten the same feeling from the unknown person. Steve steps forward, "On behalf of the Avengers, I'd like to thank you for your assistance. We would have taken much more time to defeat them if it weren't for your appearance." Peter is secretly pleased at how Steve was confident in their victory even before Dark Knight's arrival. That means he wasn't completely useless just then, right? Dark Knight dips his head slightly in a gesture of thanks. Peter lets out a silent breath. He's being friendly, that's good. Then, Iron Man steps forward. "So, you're the fire Batman Spider-Boy's been talking about." Tony's voice is light, but those who are familiar with him can hear the unpleasant biting tone hidden underneath. "Didn't know that you could deal with the alien dogs so easily." Quite the impressive first appearance. The rest of the group looks at Tony subtly in exasperation, because they can all hear the hidden question. "Why only you? Are you related to those creatures?" If Dark Knight heard Tony's jab, he doesn't say anything. Instead, he simply withdraws his claymore to his back. Just as Dark Knight's casual show of space manipulation with his weapon had surprised Spider-Man, it surprised the rest of the Avengers just as much. "Huh. Space manipulation," Clint comments in their channel. Peter can practically hear all the note-taking in the other Avengers' brains. "Dark Knight, do you know what those things are?" Peter asks. Dark Knight doesn't reply, and Peter can tell that he's thinking over something. "So, he does know something." Steve speaks up with a reassuring voice, "Mr. Dark Knight, even if you're unwilling to reveal your identity, You have just shown that you're not on the same side as those creatures. I promise that we won't do anything. We just wish to know more about these creatures so we can be prepared for next time. Dark Knight shifts slightly, his claymore shifting behind him mid-air. Peter still finds that incredibly cool. Finally, the vigilante speaks in his low voice. I've fought them before. Only my fire affects them. When? Tony asks. This isn't their first appearance here. Dark Knight replies, and there's a touch of skepticism in his words as he asks, you haven't seen them yet. We've caught similar energy anomalies before, but we weren't able to observe any in time. Natasha says in their comms, he could be probing us. Tony hums and says to Dark Knight, maybe you should ask yourself, buddy. He changes the question, as for the fire part, is it just fire, or your fire? Dark Knight doesn't say anything, but Peter swears that the temperature around him drops a few degrees, and he resists the urge to shiver. Before he says anything, though, a dripping sound interrupts the tense moment. Peter looks down, and sees a few drops of blood splattering against the concrete pavement. You're hurt. Peter looks back at Dark Knight in surprise. This is the first time he's seen Dark Knight injured. Where? Quote, I'm fine, Dark Knight says. The amount of blood that follows shortly, though, suggests otherwise. Steve steps forward with a concerned look. Mr. Dark Knight, I'm pretty sure that you need medical aid. I'm fine. Tony scoffs, alright Batman, I'm sure that you're just holding a lot of ketchup packets under that cape of yours. Steve glares at Tony, pinches the bridge of his nose, then sighs, don't mind him, he's just like that. And, no offense, but I don't think that's in the, I'm fine, level. I'm fine. Dark Knight repeats slowly, I can take care of it. Are you sure? Peter can't help but ask too, because man, that is a lot of blood on the ground now. The man's voice also sounded more strained than usual, like he's hiding a lot of pain. Iron Man's face mask lifts to reveal Tony's exasperated face. Look, buddy, I've got a whole team that can help you out if you don't be so stubborn. Dark Knight is silent once more. Then, he turns his head around in an observing manner, then takes a step back into the corner connecting the two streets. Peter's hand subconsciously reaches out. What is he doing? Dark Knight stops underneath a lamplight. Next time they appear, I will come. He says, and he sounds so sure that Peter can't help but wonder why. What do you mean by that? Tony asks. It seems that Dark Knight does have a connection with those alien dogs, but what is it? Natasha's voice is significantly sharper than before as she says, careful, he might run. Pop. Right before Peter and everyone else's eyes, the mysterious vigilante disappears into thin air. The entire Avengers team goes silent for a solid second. Peter's mouth drops open underneath his mask. Angels share official channel. 3 posts. 9.2k followers. 0 following. A poster of a Diluc, arms crossed, looking at the camera with a flat expression. The heading, "We're hiring," is emblazoned across the top of the image. Angel share official. We are hiring. Looking for experienced bartenders and anyone who aspires to walk the path of bartending. If you are willing to learn, we are willing to teach. Check here for more details. 581 likes. View all 2 comments. 5 hours ago. An image of a blue and white cocktail mix topped with a feather decoration. A dark-skinned man stands behind the bar counter, his face not within the picture. Angel share official. Due to an unfortunate accident and injury, our favorite red-haired bartender will not be running the bar tonight, sad face, but there will be a different hair color taking the place tonight. We will be open at 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. 2065 likes. View all 11 comments. Orange depression. Y'all are missing out. The blue hair bartender RN is just as fine. 1 hour ago.
Unfortunately, this part is over. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies for all those quotes, exclamation marks, question marks and mispronunciations. Please have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night. See you next time, my dear faves.